through. The miracle you've been waiting for is almost here. You may not feel it, you may not see it, but heaven is moving. The prayers you whispered in the dark, through the tears you cried when no one was watching, the moments when you held on even when everything inside you said let go. None of it has gone unnoticed. There is a divine purpose in your waiting. There is power in your perseverance. The delay is not denial, it is preparation. What's coming is greater than what you asked for. God has a perfect plan, and though you've walked through seasons of silence, it doesn't mean He's absent. Sometimes when it seems like nothing is happening, that's when everything is being aligned. The doors that didn't open, the answers that didn't come, those were all part of a greater strategy, one that leads you not to just any outcome, but to the best one. There's a stirring happening in the unseen. You've come through the fire, but you're not burned through. You've been pressed, but not crushed. You've been in the wilderness, but you were never alone. Every trial you faced was shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing your spirit. Because what's about to break through in your life will require a deeper foundation. You're not the same person who started this journey. You've grown through, and now you're ready. Don't stop believing now. The enemy wants you to give up just before the blessing. He wants you to settle, to walk away, to stop expecting. But you've come too far. Hold on. Keep praying like it's already done. Keep praising even when you feel broken. Keep showing up with faith even when your emotions say otherwise. Because heaven honors persistence. The breakthrough is closer than it's ever been. This miracle, it's not just about fixing a problem It's about revealing God's glory in your life. It's about reminding you that you were never forsaken. It's about showing others what it means to hope, to trust, and to wait. The testimony being written in your life will encourage someone else to keep going. So today, stand tall, breathe deep, look up. You're on the edge of something beautiful. The miracle you've been waiting for, it's almost here. There are moments in life when everything feels still, when you've prayed, fasted, cried, and believed, for yet nothing seems to change. The silence can feel unbearable. The waiting can feel endless. But what if the waiting season is not a punishment but preparation? What if this period where nothing seems to be happening is actually the most sacred time of all? Waiting can feel like being stuck in a hallway with no doors, just echoes of the past and silence from heaven. You begin to question your worth, your prayers, even your faith But it's in the silence that God often speaks the loudest, not with words, but with His presence. He doesn't always respond immediately because He is working deeply. He is shifting things not only around you, but inside you. You may want the miracle, but God wants transformation. He is not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. The soil must be tilled before the seed can grow. The foundation must be dug before the house can be built. Likewise, your spirit must be shaped before the miracle can be sustained. God is not in a hurry. He sees the end from the beginning. What feels like delay is actually divine timing. What looks like silence is a season of divine construction. Your heart, your character, your perspective, they're all being refined. And in this hidden work, there is holy power. You may look at others and see them moving forward, receiving what they prayed for, walking in their answered dreams. It can make your waiting feel even heavier. But comparison steals clarity. Their story is not your story. Their timeline is not your timeline. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't make sense right now. In the waiting, God is teaching you to trust Him without evidence, to believe without proof. That's where true faith grows. Faith that is only active in abundance isn't faith, it's comfort. Real faith is forged in the unseen, when you hold on to promises even when everything around you seems to contradict them. God often hides you before He reveals you. He keeps you in the dark to develop strength for the light. You may not understand what's happening, and that's okay. You don't have to understand the process to trust the one who designed it. God is not looking for your performance. He's looking for your surrender. He's asking you to trust Him when the answers don't come, when the doors remain shut, when your prayers seem to float unanswered into the sky. In those moments, He is the closest. He is drawing you deeper, not into confusion, but into intimacy. It's in the waiting that intimacy with God is cultivated. Look back on your life. The greatest growth did not happen during the easy times. It came in the stretching, in the quiet, in the seasons that felt like they would never end. And when the breakthrough finally came, it wasn't just a moment of joy. It was a testimony of endurance, of faith, of a God who never left your side. The world values speed, but God values depth. The world pushes for results, but God focuses on roots, He doesn't want to just deliver a miracle to you. He wants to anchor you so deeply in Him that when the miracle comes, it doesn't shake you, it strengthens you. Sometimes we think we're waiting on God, but often God is waiting on us to surrender fully, to trust deeply, to let go of timelines and expectations, and to rest in His sovereignty. So don't despise the waiting. Embrace it. Lean into it. There's beauty in the becoming. There's purpose in the pause. Every delay is deliberate. Every silence is sacred. Every unanswered prayer is a step towards something far greater than you imagined. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. The miracle you've been waiting for is not far off. But when it comes, you'll realize that what mattered more than the miracle was who you became while waiting for it. The process will have refined you, deepened you, and equipped you to carry what's coming with humility and strength. The waiting season is not empty, it's holy. And it is in that holiness that God is doing His greatest work in you. There's something deeply comforting in knowing that heaven moves even when we don't see it. For life can often feel like we're standing still while our prayers echo into what seems like a void. But the truth is, the absence of visible change doesn't mean nothing is happening. Just because we can't perceive it with our eyes doesn't mean God isn't working with His hands. In fact, some of the most important spiritual work happens behind the scenes, in the quiet, unseen corners of life where God is orchestrating details we couldn't begin to understand. It's easy to trust God when you see progress, when things fall into place, when doors open, when healing begins. Our faith is strong and our hope is alive. But the real test comes when nothing seems to change, when the situation looks the same day after day. That's when faith becomes more than a word. It becomes a decision, a deep choice to believe that God's hands are moving even if our eyes can't see it. God is always working. He never stops. While we sleep, He moves. While we wait, He plans. While we worry, He aligns. There are conversations happening, hearts softening, opportunities being arranged in places we haven't even imagined. He's preparing the right people, positioning the right timing, and shaping circumstances that we don't even know we need yet. That's the mystery and beauty of faith. It invites us to trust in a plan we can't fully see. We often pray for breakthroughs and expect immediate results. But just like a seed beneath the soil, the most critical part of growth happens where no one sees. A tree doesn't bear fruit the day it's planted. First, it must grow roots, deep roots, hidden roots. And in the same way, the miracle God is preparing for you requires depth, spiritual maturity, inner strength, and steadfast trust. Sometimes the waiting feels like nothing is happening because we don't see the movement in our desired direction. But what we fail to see is the divine rearrangement happening in places beyond our reach. Maybe the job isn't opening up yet because the right position hasn't been created. Maybe the relationship hasn't healed yet because hearts are still being mended in private. Maybe the answer hasn't come because it's being shaped in a way that exceeds your expectations. God doesn't operate by our timelines or deadlines. He doesn't rush just because we're tired of waiting. He is more interested in the outcome being perfect than being fast. And that's why we must learn to trust that heaven is always moving, especially when we feel forgotten or overlooked. The world tells us that if we don't see results, but heaven works differently. Heaven values process. Heaven honors patience. Heaven invests in purpose. God is not a magician. He is a master craftsman. He doesn't give us miracles like quick fixes. He builds blessings with eternal significance. And that kind of work takes time. There are angels moving on your behalf. There are answers being written while you pray. There are blessings being tailored uniquely for you so that when they come, they will fit perfectly. Nothing missing, nothing broken. If only we could see the spiritual realm, we would be overwhelmed with hope. We'd see the divine meetings, the heavenly assignments, the protection that surrounds us daily. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, the unseen is often more real than what we touch and see. When it seems like nothing is happening, that's your chance to lean deeper into faith, to remind your soul that God is always active. He doesn't slumber. He doesn't forget. He doesn't delay without purpose. If He has spoken a promise, He will fulfill it. If He has planted a vision, He will bring it to life. And often, by the time we see the breakthrough, we'll realize that heaven was working the entire time. So take heart. Lift your eyes. Choose faith over fear. Even now, at this very moment, things are shifting. Your miracle is not lost. Your breakthrough is not buried. It's being built in silence. And when it finally arrives, it will make sense. You'll look back and see how every quiet day, every tear, every unanswered prayer was necessary to bring you to the place you were meant to stand. The waiting was not in vain. The silence was not a denial. It was the sound of heaven moving things into place. There are moments in life when doors remain shut no matter how hard you knock. You pray with passion, you believe with all your heart through, and still nothing changes. It's easy to interpret that silence as rejection. It's tempting to believe that a delay means God has turned his face away. But the truth is, the delays are not denials. A closed door isn't a permanent no. Often, it's a divine not yet. Or better still, it's God saying, through, I have something better in store. We live in a world that rushes everything. We want instant responses, immediate results, and quick resolutions. Through, but God doesn't operate by human urgency. He moves by divine wisdom. He sees what we cannot. He knows what we don't. And sometimes in his mercy, through, he withholds what we think we want in order to give us what we truly need. His delays are not to punish us. They are to protect us. Through, there are blessings that come too early and destroy the very people they were meant to help. Through, there are open doors that look beautiful on the outside but lead to places that would break your spirit. God in his infinite love, through, sometimes closes a door to redirect your steps towards something far more beautiful, something you couldn't have imagined on your own. That missed opportunity, that unanswered prayer, that job that didn't call back, it might be the very thing saving you from disaster. In the delay, God is often building something bigger behind the scenes. Through, maybe the opportunity isn't ready for you, or maybe you're not yet ready for the opportunity. There is nothing wrong with being in preparation. There is no shame in being molded. Through, in fact, some of the most powerful breakthroughs happen after seasons of refining. God doesn't just want to bless you. He wants to prepare you to sustain the blessing. Think about it. Through, if you gave a sharp sword to a child, it would hurt them, not help them. But in the hands of a trained warrior, that same sword becomes a tool of purpose and victory. Likewise, through, the gifts and miracles God wants to place in your life are powerful. But he must first make sure your heart, your character, and your spirit are strong enough to carry them. Through, that's why the delay matters. There's also something sacred that happens in the waiting. It teaches you to lean on God, not on your own understanding. It teaches you to surrender, to let go of control, and to trust that God is writing a better story than the one you had planned. In the silence, you learn the sound of his whisper. In the stillness, you discover his presence in a deeper way. And when the right door finally opens, you'll recognize that it wasn't by your striving, it was by his grace. When you look through Scripture, you see this truth over and over. Joseph had dreams at 17, but didn't step into purpose until years later. After betrayal, slavery, prison, and pain. David was anointed king as a young boy, but waited for years, facing giants and running for his life before sitting on the throne. Even Jesus, the Son of God, waited 30 years before stepping into his public ministry. Why? Because divine timing is about more than opportunity, it's about destiny. So when the door doesn't open, don't assume you've been rejected. You've been redirected. When the answer doesn't come quickly, don't believe you've been abandoned. You're being prepared. Through, you may not see what God is doing, but he is moving with precision. You may not understand the delay, but one day you'll thank him for it, because you'll see how that closed door led you to a better one, how that painful no was the very thing that cleared the way for a more powerful. Yes, delays require faith. They require trust in the unseen, but they also offer the greatest opportunity to know God intimately, to experience his peace in uncertainty, to feel his presence in the quiet, to hold on to his promises when everything in you is tempted to let go. Through, and that kind of faith that endures delays without losing hope, that's the kind of faith that moves mountains. So don't lose heart when things don't happen on your schedule. Don't give up when it feels like nothing is shifting. Every moment of waiting is wrapped in divine purpose. Every delay is carrying the weight of glory. And when the time is right, the answer will come. The miracle will arrive, and you'll walk into it not with fear, but with the strength and confidence of someone who was prepared by the delay, not destroyed by it. Remember, God's not yet is never the end of the story. It's the beginning of something better. Trust the delay, embrace the pause. Through, the miracle you're waiting for is not denied. It's being designed perfectly just for you. Through, there is something profound that happens to the human spirit when it walks through the fire of life and still chooses to believe. Every hardship, every unanswered question, through every storm you survive does something within you. It builds strength. Not the kind of strength the world praises, but a deeper strength. Through a strength that can only be developed through trial, pressure, and perseverance. When you go through seasons of struggle, pain, or disappointment, you are not just surviving them, you are being shaped by them. God is using every experience to refine your character and strengthen your faith. Sometimes we wonder why life feels so heavy, through why the trials seem to stack one on top of another. It's not always because we're doing something wrong. In fact, through the weight you're carrying could be the very sign that God is preparing you for something greater. When a builder wants to raise a taller structure, he first must dig a deeper foundation. Likewise, before you can carry the full weight of a blessing, your soul must be able to hold it without collapsing. Through that kind of foundation is forged in hardship, through nights of crying out to God, through days when you press forward with nothing but faith. You don't build real strength by reading about it, you build it by walking through what tests it. Faith isn't developed in comfort. It grows when you have every reason to give up, but you don't. When you have every excuse to walk away, but you stay, that's when something unshakable starts to form in you. A spiritual muscle begins to grow. You begin to understand that you're not just believing in God for what He can give you, but for who He is in every season, especially the difficult ones. God never wastes pain. Through every tear you've cried, every time your heart has been broken, every season you didn't understand, it was not in vain. Those moments were doing something powerful within you. Through they were carving out humility, patience, endurance, and trust. They were burning away pride, fear, and doubt. In the fire, God does His greatest work. Just as gold must be refined to remove impurities, so too must we be refined through life's trials so that what remains is pure, strong, and valuable. Through you may not see the transformation immediately, but over time you'll notice it. You'll see how you respond differently to stress, how you don't panic like you used to, how you find peace even in the storm. That's not by accident. That's the result of a faith that has been tested and proven. That's the kind of strength that lasts. Not emotional hype, but a rooted confidence in the goodness of God. Sometimes we ask for God to make things easier, but what if He's trying to make you stronger instead? What if the very thing you're trying to avoid is the tool He's using to prepare you for your destiny? We often pray for deliverance when God is more interested in development. He could remove the struggle in an instant. But sometimes He allows it to continue because He's after something deeper than relief. He's after transformation. And the beautiful part is, even when you feel weak in the process, God remains strong. His grace covers your gaps. His power sustains you when your strength fails. You were never meant to carry this alone. That's why He invites you to come to Him, to lean on Him, to let Him carry the weight with you. And as you walk with Him, your strength grows, not just from trying harder, but from trusting deeper. Every giant you face, every mountain you climb, every valley you walk through is a chance to grow. It's a chance to see God move. And each time you make it through, your faith becomes a little more unshakable. You begin to realize that storms don't last forever, but the lessons they leave behind can last a lifetime. The version of you that is emerging is wiser, bolder, more compassionate, and more dependent on God than ever before. The strength is not about never feeling pain. It's about moving forward even when it hurts. It's not about always having the answers. It's about trusting God when you don't. It's not about being fearless. It's about choosing faith in the face of fear. And that kind of strength cannot be taken from you. It's been earned through every trial, every tear, through every unanswered prayer that you've surrendered to God. So if you find yourself in a season where you're stretched thin, where your prayers feel unheard, where you're walking through fire, know this: you are not being broken, you are being built. What you're carrying now is training you for what's ahead. You're not just going to come out of this, you're going to come out stronger, deeper, and more anchored than you ever were before. What feels like pressure today is producing power for tomorrow. And one day you'll look back and thank God, not just for the miracle, but for the strength He developed in you while you waited. There's a unique heaviness that comes just before something breaks through. A spiritual pressure. A wave of doubt that creeps in when you were doing so well in your faith. A sudden sense of discouragement when you were standing strong. A temptation to quit when you were almost there. It's not coincidence. It's not weakness. It's not failure. It's the final assault before the miracle. It's the enemy's last desperate attempt to stop you right before God opens the door. When opposition increases, it's often the clearest sign that you are closer than ever to the breakthrough you've been praying for. The enemy knows he can't destroy the promise God has spoken over your life, but he will do everything in his power to delay it, to distract you from it, or to cause you to give up on it. His strategy isn't always to attack you with obvious things. Sometimes, it's the subtle doubts, the quiet thoughts that whisper, Maybe God forgot about you. Maybe this isn't going to happen. Through maybe you're just not good enough. Those thoughts are not truth, they are warfare. And they often grow loudest in the moments right before something shifts. Think about it. When a seed is buried underground, it's surrounded by darkness. No one sees the work happening beneath the soil. The roots begin to stretch silently and invisibly. But right before that seed breaks through the surface, it must push through the final layer of resistance. That last bit of soil is the hardest part. But once it's passed through, the breakthrough is visible. Your life is no different. You may be in that moment right now, pressing against that final layer of resistance through. It feels heavy because the enemy knows your miracle is about to emerge. Don't be surprised when things get harder just as you're starting to believe again. Don't be alarmed when fear tries to creep back in right after you took a step of faith. That is a sign, not of defeat, but of progress. Resistance only comes when you're moving forward. The enemy does not waste time on people who are going nowhere. He targets those who are a threat, those who carry purpose, through those who are moments away from stepping into something powerful. Spiritual attacks intensify when you're nearing a turning point through. It's in those moments that the enemy throws his fiercest lies. He'll remind you of past failures. He'll highlight your insecurities. He'll magnify your weaknesses. Why? Through. Because he's hoping you'll surrender your ground before the promise is fulfilled. He wants you to believe the storm will last forever, so that you walk away before the sun rises through. But that's when you have to dig deep. That's when you have to remind yourself of everything God has already done. That's when you hold fast. Not to your feelings, through, but to the word that never fails. The truth is your miracle was never dependent on how strong you felt. It was never about how perfectly you believed. It has always been about God's grace, His power, His faithfulness. Your job is not to manufacture the miracle. Your job is to remain faithful while it's being formed through. The breakthrough belongs to God. Your part is to keep standing. There's something about a person who refuses to quit, who prays through the pain, who worships through the silence through, who believes even when the answer hasn't come. That kind of faith terrifies the enemy because it's not shallow, it's rooted, it's not emotional, it's anchored through. And when you have that kind of faith, nothing can stop you. Not the doubt, not the fear, not the storm. You may be tired, you may feel stretched thin through, you may wonder how much longer you can keep holding on. But take this as a sign you are close, so close. That's why the resistance is fierce through. That's why everything seems to be rising against you, because the enemy sees the shift. He senses what's coming. And he knows that if you make it through this moment, you will step into a season of answered prayers and divine favor. This is not the time to give up. This is the time to press in, pray harder, worship deeper. Declare God's promises louder than the lies. Rest in the truth that He who began a good work in you will complete it. You are not alone in the battle. God is fighting for you through. Angels are surrounding you. The breakthrough is on its way, so don't let temporary resistance rob you of eternal rewards. Don't let fear steal what faith has been building through. The battle may be intense, but the victory is assured. You are not losing, you are winning, even when it doesn't feel like it. Your endurance is proof. Your persistence is your weapon. And your miracle is just ahead. What you're facing now is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's a sign that something holy is about to be born. That's why it feels heavy. That's why it feels hard. But hold on, because when the morning comes, you'll see that every tear, every trial, every moment of resistance was preparing you for the blessing through. The enemy always fights the hardest when he knows he's about to lose. And he's losing because you're still standing. And that means the miracle is closer than ever. When we think about miracles, we often imagine them as solutions, answers to desperate prayers, divine interventions that remove pain, open doors, or resolve impossible situations. And yes, miracles do those things, but they do something even greater. A true miracle doesn't just change your situation, it changes you. It reveals God's glory. It displays His character. It reminds you and everyone watching that there is a living God who still moves, still sees, still saves, and still delivers. God doesn't perform miracles just to make our lives more comfortable. He performs miracles so that we might know Him more deeply, and so that others might see His hand at work in a way that leaves no room for doubt. A miracle isn't just an event, it's a message. It declares that God is real, He is near, and He is involved in the details of our lives. Sometimes, we are so focused on receiving relief that we forget God wants to reveal something far more lasting than temporary comfort. When a miracle happens, for it testifies not only to the power of God but to His love, His timing, His faithfulness, and His care. It speaks to your heart and to the hearts of those around you. Through people watch how you wait, they observe how you trust. And when the breakthrough comes, it becomes more than your personal story. It becomes a witness to others that faith is not in vain. Think about the miracles throughout Scripture. When God parted the Red Sea, it wasn't only to rescue the Israelites, it was to show the world that He was the God who delivers His people. When Jesus healed the blind, raised the dead, and calmed the storm, it wasn't only about meeting immediate needs. It was about revealing who He was, the Messiah, the Son of God. Through every miracle pointed to a greater truth, a deeper revelation, a higher glory. And the same is true today. Your miracle isn't just about you. It's about the story God is writing through your life. It's about the people who will come to believe because of what they see Him do in you and for you. There are people watching you right now, friends, family, co-workers, who may not understand your faith. They may question your prayers, your patience, your persistence. But when the breakthrough comes, when the miracle arrives, they won't be able to deny the presence of God. They'll remember the struggle. They'll remember your tears. And they'll see that it was God who brought you through. God often allows the waiting and the struggle so that when the miracle comes, there will be no doubt that it was His hand that moved. If everything always went smoothly, if all our prayers were answered instantly, we might forget who deserves the glory. But when you've walked through fire and come out untouched, when you've faced storms and weren't drowned, when you've sat in silence and still heard the whisper of His voice, that's when the miracle becomes more than just an answered prayer. It becomes a divine signpost, pointing everyone around you back to the one who made it possible. Even your pain has purpose. The suffering, the questions, the long nights, they all become part of the testimony. Because when the miracle comes, you'll be able to say, it was God, only God. And that confession has the power to change hearts, to open eyes, to strengthen faith in others who are still in their own waiting season. Don't underestimate the impact of your miracle. Don't minimize what God is doing just because it's taking time. The greater the trial, the louder the testimony. The longer the wait, the more glorious the fulfillment. Sometimes, God delays the miracle so that more people can witness His power when it arrives. Sometimes He stretches the journey so that when the answer comes, it draws not just you, but many others closer to Him. So while you're waiting, know this: the miracle is not just about fixing a problem. It's about revealing a promise. It's about showing that God is who He says He is. Faithful, mighty, compassionate, sovereign. A miracle that only meets your need is incomplete. But a miracle that glorifies God, now that is something eternal. When the breakthrough finally happens, when the answer finally comes, let it be a song of praise. Let it be a declaration of God's goodness. Tell the story. Share the struggle. Give the glory where it belongs. Not to your efforts, not to your strength, but to the one who never left your side. The miracle you've been waiting for will come. And when it does, it will shine with more than relief. It will shine with glory. God's glory. Through and through it, lives will be touched, faith will be restored, and hope will rise again, not just in you, but in everyone who sees what He's done. That is the true purpose of a miracle, not just to change your life, but to reveal the heart of the one who gave it.